In 1994, a German archaeologist was surveying a barren, windswept hillside in southern Turkey when his shovel struck something hard beneath the soil. He brushed away the dirt, then more dirt, and what slowly emerged from the earth that day would send shockwaves through the entire scientific community. Shockwaves that are still being felt today. What he found wasn't supposed to exist. A massive, perfectly engineered temple complex. Carved pillars, intricate artwork, stunning architecture. All of it built with a level of precision and sophistication that took his breath away. But here is the part that changes everything. This structure was built approximately 12,000 years ago. 6,000 years before Stonehenge. 7,000 years before the Egyptian pyramids. At a time when, according to every history textbook ever written, humans were nothing more than primitive hunter-gatherers. People who had not yet invented farming, had not yet built permanent homes, had not yet developed any form of organized society whatsoever. And yet, here was the evidence. Right there in the ground. Undeniable. Unexplainable. This place is called Göbekli Tepe, and in the 30 years since its discovery, it has quietly and systematically dismantled everything we thought we knew about the origins of human civilization. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will never look at ancient history the same way again. To understand why Göbekli Tepe is so significant, we first need to understand what the history books told us before it was found. For decades, centuries even, historians and archaeologists operated on a very clear and confident timeline of human development. It went something like this. For most of human prehistory, people lived as nomads, small groups wandering from place to place, hunting animals and gathering wild plants to survive. They had no permanent homes, no organized religion, no architecture, and no writing. This period is known as the Stone Age, and it supposedly lasted until around 10,000 years ago. Then something changed. Humans discovered agriculture. They learned to grow their own food, which meant they no longer needed to keep moving. They settled down, built villages, and slowly over thousands of years those villages grew into towns, then cities, then civilizations. And with civilization came religion, art, writing, and monumental architecture. That was the story. Neat, logical, widely accepted. And then Klaus Schmidt put his shovel in the ground in southern Turkey, and the story fell apart. Schmidt was a German archaeologist working with the German Archaeological Institute. He had heard rumors from local farmers about strange stones jutting out of a hilltop near the town of Şanlıurfa. When he arrived and began excavating, what he uncovered was beyond anything he had imagined. Massive T-shaped limestone pillars, some standing over 5 meters tall and weighing between 10 and 20 tons each, arranged in perfect circles. And carved into those pillars with extraordinary skill and detail were animals: foxes, lions, vultures, scorpions, spiders, snakes, rendered with an artistic sophistication that would be impressive even by modern standards. And the dating was unambiguous. 12,000 years old, maybe older. Schmidt immediately understood what he was looking at. He would later say, and I'm paraphrasing here, that this site alone proves that the history of civilization must be completely rewritten. He spent the rest of his life excavating Göbekli Tepe. He died in 2014 still working on the site. And here is perhaps the most astonishing fact of all. After 30 years of excavation, archaeologists believe they have uncovered only about 5% of the total complex. 95% still lies buried beneath that Turkish hillside waiting. Now let's get into the mysteries, because the existence of Göbekli Tepe is just the beginning. The deeper archaeologists dig, the stranger things get. Mystery number 1. Who actually built this, and how? Think about what it would take to construct Göbekli Tepe. You would need to quarry massive limestone blocks from nearby hillsides, without metal tools because metal hadn't been invented yet. You would need to transport those blocks, some weighing 20 tons across difficult terrain, without the wheel because that hadn't been invented either. You would need to lift them upright, position them with precision and carve detailed artwork into them, without any of the technology we associate with monumental construction. And you would need a lot of people to do it. Estimates suggest that building even one of the enclosures at Göbekli Tepe would have required the coordinated labor of hundreds, possibly thousands of workers. All organized, all fed, all working toward a shared purpose. But here's what makes this truly baffling. There is no evidence of permanent settlement anywhere near Göbekli Tepe. No homes, no kitchens, no storage facilities for food. No sign that anyone actually lived there. Which means these supposed primitive hunter-gatherers somehow organized massive construction projects, fed and coordinated a workforce of thousands, and then went home. To wherever home was. For people who supposedly had no concept of organized society. How? Nobody knows. Mystery number 2. The carvings and what they might mean. The animal carvings at Göbekli Tepe are extraordinary on their own. But some researchers believe they are far more than decoration. A team of scientists from the University of Edinburgh published a study suggesting that certain carvings at Göbekli Tepe appear to record an astronomical event. Specifically, a comet impact or airburst that they believe occurred around 10,950 BC. An event that would have been catastrophic, devastating, The kind of event that would sear itself into the memory of any human community that witnessed it and survived. If this interpretation is correct, it means the builders of Göbekli Tepe were not just carving pretty pictures, they were recording history, documenting a disaster, leaving a message for whoever came after them, which raises an uncomfortable question. If these people were sophisticated enough to record astronomical events in stone, what else did they know? What else were they capable of? And what happened to them? Mystery number 3. Why was it deliberately buried? This is perhaps the strangest mystery of all. Around 8000 BC, approximately 2000 years after Göbekli Tepe was built, someone made a decision. A deliberate, organized, intentional decision to bury the entire complex. They filled it with soil, flint tools, animal bones, and debris, sealing it completely beneath the ground. This is actually the reason it survived so well. The burial preserved everything. But the question of why haunts researchers to this day. Why would you bury something you spent generations building? Why would you deliberately hide a monument of that scale and significance? Was it a ritual act? A sacred burial of a holy place? Was it an attempt to protect it from some approaching threat? Was it done in preparation for a long journey? As if the builders knew they were leaving and might never return? Or, and this is the theory that some researchers find most compelling, was it buried to hide it? To conceal its existence from someone or something they feared? We don't know. We may never know. Mystery number 4. The deeper you dig, the older and more sophisticated it gets. At virtually every other ancient site ever excavated, there is a clear pattern. The deeper layers, yes, the older ones, are more primitive. Cruder construction, simpler artwork, less sophisticated design. And as you move upward through the layers, things get progressively more advanced. That is the normal pattern of human development. Göbekli Tepe is completely backwards. The deeper archaeologists dig, the more sophisticated the construction becomes. The oldest, deepest enclosures are the largest, most precisely built, and most elaborately carved. The newer, shallower ones are actually smaller and simpler. This makes no sense within our current understanding of history. It suggests that whoever built Göbekli Tepe was not a civilization at the beginning of its development. It was a civilization, or the remnant of one, that was already past its peak. Already in decline, which means there may be something older underneath. Something we haven't found yet. And now we get to the part of the story that has divided historians, archaeologists, theologians, and researchers for decades. The theories, some mainstream, some deeply controversial, all of them fascinating. Theory number 1. Göbekli Tepe is the original Garden of Eden. This theory is not as fringe as it might sound. In fact, it has been seriously proposed by a number of credible researchers, including archaeologists, biblical scholars, and historians. Here is why. The book of Genesis describes the Garden of Eden as being located at the source of 4 rivers, including the Tigris and the Euphrates. Göbekli Tepe sits in the upper reaches of exactly that region, the Fertile Crescent, the exact geographic area where the Genesis account places the garden. Furthermore, and this is remarkable in the land around Göbekli Tepe 12,000 years ago was radically different from the dry, barren landscape it is today. It was lush, fertile, abundant with wildlife. Essentially a paradise. Klaus Schmidt himself acknowledged the connection. He noted that the site sits precisely where the Bible says Eden was located, in a region that was once a kind of paradise that has since become desert. And consider this, the Bible describes humanity being expelled from Eden and forced to begin farming and laboring for food. Göbekli Tepe sits at what archaeologists now believe is the very birthplace of agriculture. The place where humans first began deliberately cultivating crops, almost as if after being separated from their original home, they had to learn to survive in a new way. Coincidence, perhaps, but it is a remarkable one. Theory number 2. A lost civilization was destroyed, and Göbekli Tepe is what survived. This theory connects directly to the comet impact evidence we discussed earlier. If a catastrophic comet strike or airburst occurred around 10,900 BC, and the evidence suggests something did, it would have caused global devastation, massive fires, an impact winter blocking sunlight for years, collapse of ecosystems, the end of whatever civilization existed at that time. Some researchers propose that Göbekli Tepe was built by a civilization that came before the one we know about, a culture that had developed sophisticated knowledge of astronomy, architecture, and engineering over thousands of years, and was then virtually wiped out by this catastrophe. The survivors, scattered, traumatized, reduced to small wandering groups, would have appeared to later generations as primitive hunter-gatherers. And because compared to what they once were, they were. This would explain the flood myths. Almost every ancient culture on Earth, Sumerian, Hebrew, Greek, Hindu, Native American, Chinese, has a story of a great flood or catastrophe that destroyed an earlier, more advanced world. Could they all be remembering the same event? And it would explain Göbekli Tepe itself, not as the beginning of civilization, but as the memorial of one that was lost. Theory number 3. Religion built civilization, not the other way around. This is perhaps the most academically significant theory to come out of Göbekli Tepe, and it has genuinely changed how many scientists think about human development. The standard model, as we discussed, said that agriculture came first. Humans settled, farmed, built cities, and then developed religion as part of their cultural growth. Göbekli Tepe destroys this model completely. Here was a massive religious and ceremonial complex, built before agriculture, before permanent settlement, before any of the things we associate with civilization. Which means religion, the impulse to gather, to worship, to build something sacred, came first. It was not a product of civilization. It may have been the very cause of it. Think about what that means. Thousands of people gathering regularly at a sacred site would have needed to be fed. That need, the need to feed the people who came to worship, may have been the direct motivation that drove humans to begin farming. To plant crops intentionally near the gathering place so the worshippers could eat. In other words, God or the search for God may have literally built human civilization. For people of faith, this is not surprising. But for the scientific community, it was a revelation. So where does this leave us? 12,000 years ago, in a region the Bible calls Eden, an unknown group of people built something extraordinary. They quarried and moved 20-ton stones without metal or wheels. They carved breathtaking art into pillars. They organized thousands of workers without any form of government or currency that we can identify. They recorded the stars and possibly documented a global catastrophe in stone. They built circles within circles, layer upon layer, growing more sophisticated the deeper you go. And then, deliberately, carefully, completely, they buried it all and disappeared. For 10,000 years, Göbekli Tepe sat silently beneath that Turkish hillside, through the rise and fall of Sumer, through the pyramids of Egypt, through the glory of Greece and Rome, through the Dark Ages and the Renaissance and the Industrial Revolution, through 2 world wars, through the entire span of recorded human history, it waited. Until 1994, when a shovel broke the surface and the questions began. We have uncovered 5% of this site. 5%. Whatever secrets are buried in the remaining 95. Whatever chambers, whatever carvings, whatever evidence of who these people were and what they knew. We have not found it yet. But here's what I want to leave you with tonight. There is an ancient text, one of the oldest and most widely read documents in human history, that describes this exact region, this exact time period, and speaks of a catastrophic event that divided human history into a before and an after. A text that speaks of a paradise that was lost, a flood that covered the earth, and giants who walked among men in the days before the disaster came. That text is the Bible. And in our next video, we are going to open it up and look at what it actually says about the world that existed before the flood. The world that Göbekli Tepe may have been built in. The world that was erased. You do not want to miss that one. If this video gave you something to think about, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And drop a comment below. Do you think Göbekli Tepe is the Garden of Eden? I want to know what you think. I'll see you in the next one.